Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a Karen attacks my disabled daughter at a public beach. She insults her and I show her why it's not a good idea to mess with a drill sergeant, especially on public property. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. And the first one goes like this. As somebody in the military, I will admit that one of the downsides is the lack of time spent with family. My wife and 3 kids don't live on base with me due to my oldest daughter needing care and accommodations that are better off base. When I get time off to see my family, I want to make sure that they get all the attention they deserve. With my kids, I will always make time to do a special activity day with just them. My kids call it Dad Days and absolutely love them. My oldest daughter is in a wheelchair and has mental disabilities. She cannot really talk but make sounds and gestures that we as her parents can interpret. She also uses pictures to communicate wants and needs. Whenever she gets a dad day, she picks going to the beach pretty much every single time. It's her favorite place in the world and I know it is hard for my wife to take her and the kids all by herself. While she cannot swim in the water, she loves it when I lay her down on the sand and she can feel the warmth. She sticks her hands in and plays with the sand texture for hours. She also loves staring out at the water and seeing the way it moves. This is both important to the story and just me loving my child and getting carried away talking about her. It was a turn for that day when we found ourselves on the beach once again. Now, despite being 12 years old, she looks a few years younger and certain things took time to get used to. One of them being as a man having to take and help my daughter in a public bathroom. She signaled to me after about an hour that she had to go, so I went to put her back in the chair. Before we could even move much, I heard a scuff and a woman saying, finally. I don't know if it was my nature or my job, but when I hear comments I cannot help but turn and look at who said it. In this case, a woman who was sitting close by to us with her 2 kids. I don't take any crap and I can tell from her tone and my experiences that it was targeted towards me and not friendly. Me, excuse me? Karen, it's about time you're packing up and leaving. I mean seriously, it's been forever. I did not like the tone in her voice and I knew things were about to escalate. One thing to know about drill sergeants is that we don't take crap for anybody and have a tendency to go nuclear if angered. Me, we are just going to the bathroom. My daughter and I plan to stay here all day. Karen, you're a horrible parent for bringing that stupid child to the beach. If you were a good parent, you would put her in a home somewhere to be properly cared for. I was boiling because nobody gets to sit there and tell me that I'm a bad father. She was not finished yet though. Karen, if you were a real man like my husband, you would go and get a job. Taking care of somebody like that is for a mother. Real men go and get manly jobs that take care of their family. Me, don't you dare say a word about me not being a good father or a man. I can tell right away that I'm better than you teaching your kids to mock disabled people. Karen, if you don't leave and take her with you, I'm going to the lifeguard. And tell him that you're being inappropriate with a disabled girl and get you thrown into jail. A guy like you would not last 2 minutes there. I will probably be praised for protecting all the kids on this beach. I could not handle her comments about my daughter and implied SA. I got right into her face and transformed into what I can only describe as drill sergeant mode. The kind you might see in a video of screaming right in somebody's face. I told her exactly the kind of job I had and with my rank I could make sure that she was put under military investigation. I was mostly talking nonsense that just sounded scary in hopes that she would back off. She did back up away from me with a disgusted look on her face. What I wasn't able to do was react fast enough to what she did next. Karen was not happy about my yelling and decided to take things out on my daughter. She pushed her out of the wheelchair and then quickly ran back to her kids like nothing happened. My daughter was wailing since for her a fall like that could easily dislocate something. Plus the fear of being shoved out of her chair while not knowing what was going on. Luckily, she was physically okay and I managed to get her safely back into the chair. I approached Karen to tell her off, but she was actually smiling smugly at me. She told me that I should not bother trying to tell anybody because she would report me. Since I was way bigger than her, she was under the assumption she would win. She then told me again I better leave or she would punch me in the face and do a whole lot worse to my daughter. At that point, I lost any control I had and punched her in the face and she hit the sand. I heard lifeguard whistles blowing and police being called to the scene. We were all moved to a separate area in some building to wait for the police to arrive. They took statements from both me and Karen to see who was at fault. My daughter not being able to talk was not able to tell them anything. Karen was pointing out that I was unfit because since it had been a while, my daughter holding it in had long gone and she was clearly wet. I could hear the police talking about calling social services and a possible battery charge against me. We had caused quite a scene and not everybody that saw wanted to just sit around and mind their own business. Thank goodness for that. The police had random people that saw and heard the entire thing telling them what Karen did. Attacking a disabled girl will make you everybody's enemy at a public place. The police decided from all the stories that I was acting to defend myself and my daughter. When I was asked the magic words if I wanted to press charges, I could not say yes fast enough. She was charged with assault and battery of my daughter as well as assault on me. This judge was in no way lenient about her going after a disabled child unprovoked. Not to mention her calling my daughter the R-word again in court and insulting the military. She was not winning any favors on that. She got sentenced to 7 years in prison and was not happy about that result. If anybody is wondering about her 2 kids she was with, they are fine. She was with them because she got visitation while their dad actually had custody already. It's really hard for me to imagine a parent especially doing something like that to a kid. I'd do anything for each and every one of my children, no matter what it took. That's probably why I have no regrets for punching Karen, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Until the day I die, I will protect my children and make sure that my daughter gets to continue going to her favorite place. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that Karen got what she deserved or that it was too much? Let me know in the comments. Also, while you're at it, I would very much appreciate it if you could also like the video, because it would help me tremendously. The next one is a malicious compliance story and it is very satisfying. I'm a senior electrical engineer in the industrial sector. I started work at a huge firm a few weeks ago and right off the bat my superior detailed what was expected of me every quarter. Among the requirements were 1 safety violation report a month. I thought okay, I could keep myself from effing up more than once a month. This is a large factory with everything from spinning grinders to steaming corrosives, so obviously OSHA is a big issue here, but this is not my first rodeo, so to speak. I generally know what I'm doing, so my first month goes by and I keep everything nice and safe. End of month, one-on-one rolls around. Boss makes it clear to my surprise that the requirement is for me to file at least 1 safety violation a month. Obviously, I inquired how one could go about controlling safety violations, as they are inherently accidents, and if I had any way to influence their appearance, I would obviously prevent them in the first place. But he just said I need to keep my eyes open, the violations will appear. Fine, so I kept my eyes open, but honestly, everything seems perfectly in order. Everyone else in my department were ticking off safety violations one after another, and I was nearing the end of months 2 with nothing. I'd go on walks looking for safety infringements instead of working. Something just seemed off, so I looked into the safety violations report Pexel and I was just stupefied. This was a list of the most unbelievably inane infractions I've ever set my eyes upon. I'll give you some examples. Infraction: cabinet door was left open in the room. Someone could hit their head. Immediate mitigation: cabinet door closed. Future mitigation: add magnets to cabinet doors. There were countless other esoteric reports like unexplained puddle next to electrical cabinet or stack of cables on the floor. I simply couldn't believe it. These well-educated grown men and women just writing nonsensical safety violations on absolutely anything. I tried approaching one of the guys about it, but he just said to keep my eyes open, the violations will appear. They keep repeating it like it's a mantra and then change the subject. I thought this was ridiculous enough, but then one day a report came in about a ladder missing one of the plastic caps on its legs. Immediate mitigation: plastic cap found elsewhere and secured in its place. Now, I was the last one to use this ladder the day before and it was perfectly fine, which led to my conclusion that this man was purposely sabotaging company equipment just so he can fix it and then write a safety violation report. I feel like I am in an episode of The Office. Everyone I approach about this just brushes it off. Maybe it's because I'm the new guy. Anyway, I could not show up to my second monthly evaluation sun safety report, so I went to a random grounding cable, slightly unfastened the bolt, took a picture, and then fastened it back in place. I wrote a report about it and the OSHA guy commended me in person about my vigilance. Is this a department-wide grift? Are the managers unaware of this farce or are they playing along? Usually this would be a huge red flag, but everyone is otherwise really nice and the pay is great. Anyway, ideas as to what I should sabotage next month are welcome. And the next one is titled Pro Revenge. So I was working at a major fast food chain. The restaurant was a franchise and the franchise owner, let's call him Mike, owned multiple franchise locations across the city. Below him there was the guy who dealt with the day-to-day operations of the locations, let's call him Jeff. Now at my restaurant there was the general manager who I'll call Carmela and multiple shift managers. I worked there for only about 4 months before I secured a better job. I turned in my 2-week notice directly to Carmela. I specifically stated a date in which my employment will end and had a short conversation with her confirming the details. Come my final week, I was scheduled the day before the date I had listed on my notice. Carmela, or Carmela, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, also went off on vacation that week and put a shift manager in charge of scheduling and keeping track of hours. When I showed up for work on my last day, I went to clock in and was unable to do so. Apparently, I was removed from the login system a day short of when I was supposed to be. No problem, I'll just record my clock times manually, and I worked my shift like normal while recording my clock times on a piece of receipt paper. At the end of my shift, I had the shift manager post the receipt paper on the corkboard and he sent a message to Carmela to adjust my hours accordingly since I couldn't clock that day. The total time I worked was around 5 hours. I took a picture of the receipt paper showing my hours posted on the corkboard so I was sure I had proof that I was there. Come payday, Jeff was there and I personally turned my uniform into him and picked up my check. I've always kept a very accurate record of my hours and discovered that my paycheck was short the exact amount of time I worked on my last day. I immediately brought it to Jeff's attention and gave him a rundown of what happened. He gave me his phone number to text him the whole situation and sent him the picture I took so that he had it written down. He told me he was gonna get it figured out and follow up with me. Over the course of a couple of weeks, I followed up multiple times with no response. I felt at this point the wait was getting ridiculous, so I got into contact with HR for the restaurant's corporate operations. I was basically told that since I worked at a franchise, there was nothing they could do and that I had to get in contact with the franchise owner directly. After failing to find contact info for Mike, I decided to go to the labor board for help. The labor board informed me that since they didn't pay me in full for the hours worked, I was entitled to back pay of 8 hours every day they didn't pay me up to 30 days. The labor board opened a case and immediately started attempting to contact the franchise owner, but to no avail. Eventually, they sent a letter to the franchise owner's home address directly, and I received a call from Mike on a Friday asking me why the labor board is going after him. I gave him a complete rundown on everything that happened and he told me that this was the first time he had heard about the situation. We arranged to meet at the restaurant a few days later. When we met, we had a very open conversation on my time there. I told him everything about issues that were arising with managers all the way to not being able to clock in on my last day. At this point, if the labor dispute went to court, he would be looking at thousands of dollars in back pay due to how long it was taking to get it sorted out. We agreed to settle it for around $500. I felt on top of the world because my missing wages was only $45 or so. I visited the restaurant a few weeks later and found out that since the case was settled, a lot of things changed. Come to find out, Carmela and Jeff were hiding the case from Mike by destroying the letters and not responding to the calls from the labor board. They were also preventing contact with Mike by removing his contact info from the break room and refusing to make it available to employees. Mike fixed all of that by permanently posting his info in the break room and even set up a 1-800 number that he posted behind the register so that if any customers had complaints, they can submit a complaint to him directly. I'm not sure what happened with Jeff and Carmela, but I know the management was rearranged due to the issues I brought up with him in our conversation. Evidently, my new job was at a major drugstore chain that Carmela used as her pharmacy. A few months later, while I was working, Carmela came in and noticed I worked there. Shortly after, I found out from the pharmacy department that she started going to the pharmacy of another location. And yeah, ripe stars, I have to admit, I cannot really say that I loved every single job I've had so far, except for YouTube of course, but which is not really being employed by someone, but instead having your own business. However, the times I've been employed so far, at least the boss was not as terrible as the ones in this story. But then again, I still cannot say that I really enjoyed these jobs. Next one is titled Karen Called the Cops on Me. For some context, I live in a predominantly Catholic city where most people attend church on a regular basis. I, however, was not raised Catholic or religious really, so I kind of stand out a little bit from most people. This all happened about 2 years ago when I was still in college. My high school was just down the road from a Tim Hortons, and across the road from that is a pretty large church, which was the only one in the neighborhood, I think. On Sunday, I decided to grab a coffee on my way to pick up a textbook for one of my classes. It was about 12, so church had just ended and there was a decently long line up for the Tim Hortons. I had been waiting in line for about 5 minutes when a woman walked up to me and started talking to me. It was a pretty normal conversation, but then she asked why she had not seen me that morning. I was confused since I had literally never spoken to this woman before. She told me that this Tim Hortons belonged to the church, which it actually didn't. I casually explained that I did not attend the church she was talking about, and she gave me a confused stare and muttered an "oh" before walking away. Skip forward to Tuesday, I was once again at that Tim Hortons getting some lunch when the same lady walks up to me and starts to berate me for being at that Tim Hortons again. "I thought I told you this Tim's is for the church only." "Yeah, but it's just a Tim's. Anyone can come in here if they want to, though." "No! This Tim's is not for anyone who doesn't attend the church." "But the next Tim's is like 5 kilometers away." She continues to just yell at me in front of everyone in the Tim Hortons. I was actually just going to leave to get a lunch from my school, and then she dropped the Karen bomb. "If you don't leave the Tim's right now, I'm going to call the police." I decided at that moment to just stand still and let her call the cops if she wants to. About 10 minutes later, 2 officers show up. The Karen tells them that I am disrespecting her, disrespecting God, and disrespecting the church. I tell them that I'm just a hungry teenager trying to get my lunch, but the cops take her side and call both of my parents and my school. My super awesome VP shows up and demands why he got a call from the police about one of his students. The officers tell him what's happening. My VP asks me if it is true, and I tell him that I was just trying to get some lunch. My VP asks the officers what laws I had broken, and they responded with some BS about harassment or something like that. My parents are called in and my mom tells the cop to frick off and that I didn't do anything wrong. But Karen keeps insisting that I had been harassing her. Then one of the employees chirps in and starts to vouch for me. Eventually the cops leave and so do my parents. I get my lunch and my VP walks me back to school. I never ran into that lady after that, but I made sure to get lunch from that Tim's as often as I could. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems nowadays you cannot even go to a beloved Canadian donut chain in peace anymore without getting hassled by a Karen. At least here in Thailand I can still peacefully eat Krispy Kreme donuts, which by the way in my opinion are the best, without getting annoyed by Asian Karens. Anyway, the next one is titled "Cops Threaten to Arrest Me." Being an herpetophile, and by the way guys, I have to say that very wrong and very slowly because of the stupid YouTube algorithm. I used to keep and breed reptiles and amphibians. I don't just know how to take care of lizards and frogs, but I also know how to keep bugs. As if I cannot keep big terrariums in my current home, I am keeping 3 queen ants. They give me the chance to build tiny terrariums and will provide good food for dendrobates in the future if I ever have a chance to keep those frogs again. A Lasius emerginatus I caught 2 years ago, and 2 still unidentified Camponotus queens I caught today while I was out for some grocery shopping. Which is why I almost got arrested. I took a break to smoke a cigarette on a bench near a small park when I spotted 2 ants that looked like wingless queens looking for a nesting site after the nuptial flight. Most species lose the wings right after mating before building a nest. The only thing I had to catch them was the clear plastic wrapping of my cigarette packs. I've bought several packs, which at least in my country is often used also by drug dealers as bags to store doses. So I used 2 of those bags to catch those queens, and as if I had other things to do and I couldn't keep them there for too long, they need to be placed in artificial nests ASAP, I went straight to the pharmacy to buy 2 test tubes for blood and urine samples. They are used as nests for small ant colonies, and some cotton. It's used to create a water storage on the bottom of test tubes and as a cork at the opening of the tube. It prevents the ants of escaping but allows them to breathe. As soon as I got out of the pharmacy, still holding the bags with the ends, the test tubes and the cotton in my hands, I saw two cops, C1 and C2, waiting for me. Turned out they saw me walking to the pharmacy with two small clear bags in my hands and then got suspicious. C1, hello there, would you mind explaining to us why you just bought cotton and needles? They probably thought that test tube boxes contain syringes. Me, well, I am... well, the guy that really loves insects, I guess, and I also explained the meaning in details, and a few minutes ago I caught two queen ants, perfectly legal here by the way. I needed test tubes and cotton to store them. C2, looking at C1 and laughing, that's the lamest excuse a damn junkie could use. Me, why are you an expert on making up excuses for being a junkie? Yeah, I got pissed off, but cops here are pretty arrogant and often lie on papers to justify illegitimate arrests, so I don't like them at all. C1, oh, so you're a comedian too? Me, no, but considering how many jokes there are about cops, I expected you to have some sense of humor. C2, are you calling us buffoons? Do you want to get charged for insulting officers too, instead than just for possession of drugs? Me, showing them the bags with the drugs. First of all, as you can see, there are not any drugs in those bags. Second, you can also see I did not buy any needles, but two test tubes for blood samples, which along with the two queen ants should prove you I'm not getting ready to get high. Third, feel free to check my backpack and the content of my pockets for anything illegal, while I write my lawyer, and I'm sure she will be happy to come here and assist me if needed. Last but not least, I was not calling you buffoons at all. Buffoons are supposed to have a sense of humor. Luckily, after they checked my backpack and my ID, they went away without pressing charges. I assume threatening to involve a lawyer kept them on the spot, so I got away with no consequences. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.